Hey, everybody, I'm S.A. Baz Collins in for this week's Written on the Edge, Season 11, Episode 20, Interview. So, we'll be getting to know our author, Russ Lopez, better and talking about their recent release, Provincetown Stories. So, let's welcome our guests. Russ Lopez is the author of Provincetown Stories, a collection set in the Portuguese fishing village gay tourist mecca on the tip of Cape Cod. He's written six nonfiction books, let me get that right, including The Hub of the Gay Universe, an LGBTQ History of Boston, Provincetown, and Beyond. He is the editor of Latin eLit, an online magazine that publishes fiction by and about Latinx people, and his work has appeared in the Fictional Café, Somos and Escrito, Northeast Atlantic, Discretionary Love, Night Picnic, the Gay and Lesbian Review, the Journal of American Medical Association, and many other places. He's also scribbled on a few bathroom walls. No, I'm
From time to time.
Lopez has also written numerous academic articles, book reviews, and works in many formats. He has presented at numerous book festivals, podcasts, and special programming on books and literature. Originally from California, Russ has a degree from Stanford, Harvard, and Boston University. He splits his time between Boston and Ptown year round. Russ, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me here.
That's quite the bio. When do you sleep?
Well, I used to do book reviews for the JAMA for the Journal of American Medical Association, but I just love the way it's just so jarring, right? He wrote for Discretionary Love and JAMA.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the juxtaposition, you're like, huh? What?
My training is actually as an epidemiologist, but I really
Okay.
I like the history portion, so I started writing nonfiction history, and then that led to the LGBTQ history, which then led to Provincetown Stories, which is my first fiction book that's been published.
Love it, love it, love it. Yeah, I've my theory is that the spirit of Agnes Moorehead and Dora is the muse for all gay male writers. She likes to fuck with us when she wants to, you know.
Right.
All right, so let's talk about how you got into writing. You talked a little bit about doing the nonfiction, the history, and
Mhm.
then what was it like writing the LGBTQ history book? Because I'm really fascinated by that.
That one was Hub of the Gay Universe, and I I had written several other like an academic architecture history book and some other things, and it was strange that there was no history book about the gay life in Boston. And then I read a the Fight for Marriage Equality book that was predominantly set in San Francisco and Washington and only mentioned Massachusetts once, which is a little weird to me because, we were the first state to have it. I got married that very first day it was legal. So I thought, well, really, somebody needs to write a book about Boston because so much has happened here. And they've always called it the hub of the universe for straight people and whatnot. So I thought that was kind of a nice little whatever. And it was wonderful to write. Part of it was difficult because I experienced it myself. Like the AIDS years were very difficult to write.
Mhm.
Um, and then the marriage equality fight was also difficult because I was in the middle of it all. So it's hard to, how do you have a objective um, narrative, right? When you were there, right? You remember wanting to, you were screaming at people, right? You really can't put that in a book. Well, there I was on the corner of whatever and whatever and screaming at somebody. Um, but when that was done, I also realized there are things that you can't put into hard sort of, nonfiction writing where you need to have a citation for each thing you do and what
Mm.
happens and whatnot. There are truths, there are ways of living that don't get caught up. And partly reading people's journals, reading old things from the 20s and 30s, teens, and that's how far back uh, LGBTQ history in Boston goes. Um, I was just
Actually, that's
there's
not quite true, but I'll clue you in on something. Go ahead,
it goes much
finish.
further back than that, but I'm just to
Yeah.
say that there are lots of things in right, but there are just narratives. There are I wanted to show how people live today, particularly in Provincetown.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I thought, well, I don't have to write a nonfiction book just about Provincetown. I could just, use my imagination and take all the different people I see and all the different events that happen to me. I'm a little bit like Forrest Gump, where I'm just there and people will tell me stories or do
Mm-hmm.
things for me. And I could take those and turn those into stories. And in the process, sort of document what life was like in Provincetown today. I mean, is it truthful? No. There's no, all events, people, and places are fictional, of course,
Right.
according to my lawyers. And um, but I think when you read the book, it gives you the flavor of what life was like in Provincetown in the 2020s.
Excellent, excellent. I love that. The reason why I said it's not wholly true is my husband is descended from John Winthrop, who
Ah,
well founded, the whole Massachusetts area kind of thing. And there's actually evidence that he married same-sex couples in those times way back then. So actually, Massachusetts is way, way earlier. Their history of actually being supportive of the community. It was much later after the whole Salem witch and all that kind of stuff that and he actually
well,
had a woman had in his life. There's a book called The Winthrop Woman
mm-hmm,
by Anya Seton.
mm-hmm.
That's one of his direct relatives.
Oh, wow, wow.
And when the witch's trial, I love it that when the witch's trials came around, she said, "Yeah, y'all are crazy. I'm getting the fuck out of here." She
Well,
just left.
one of the to get off on a tangent here, one of the what fascinates me is that Puritan, the word Puritan itself has that connotation of being very strict or whatever. But Massachusetts, unlike other places, never put any, even though it was on the books that there was a death penalty for sodomy, they never put anybody to death for that.
Yeah,
And then you take this Puritan and Pilgrim churches that were so conservative, and over the years now they're Unitarians and Congregationalists who are, as liberal as sin itself.
yeah.
So I've always been fascinated by that arc of history
And it's
throughout
just
our
really
area.
fascinating that it started from the very beginning when John Winthrop showed up in the Massachusetts area, what would become that.
Right.
And it's just so, they have a lot to be proud about because it was literally founded with those principles. So they've actually gone back to their principles. I just love that part of history. And and my husband's direct link to it just always fascinates me. I love all that stuff. Um, so here's the question I have for you. Being half Latino and half Native, and that's why I'm wearing my Blue Beetle hat, showing the pride for the Rasa. But how did a boy from California end up in Massachusetts? That's what I want to know.
I like to tell people I moved here because I like bad weather. And and, the Chamber of Commerce will probably hate me. The Provincetown Business School will probably hate me. But today is a very cold, windy day, and it's the end of May, right? So
Right.
it gives you the idea that, whatever. I had never seen snow before I moved here. I applied to graduate school at Harvard as a joke, thinking I'd never get in. And of course, I got in. And what do? You have to go, right? I mean,
Right, right, right.
actually, and I got a lot of scholarship money, so that kind of did the thing as well. So, I came out here. I had never seen snow before in my life, and
Well, where are
the
you from in California?
San Jose.
Oh,
I
okay,
grew
okay.
up in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
I tell people I had to leave there in any case because it's 2 million people without any sense of irony. And I just had to get out of there, right? I'd say something sarcastic, and people would look at me like, "No, that's not the way it is." I go, "Oh yeah, it is." So I came out of here, and then
Yes, we can admit to what bubbles
yeah,
underneath the
yeah.
surface.
And then strangely enough, I was in a class at Harvard, and um, this guy, really good looking, sits down next to me, and that was 42 years ago, and he's my husband. So I had, it's very hard to move a couple
Yeah,
with two
yeah,
careers, right?
yep,
So
yep. I
I
hear
never
you.
left. I swear I would swear I would go, but I never did. I actually worked for a Latino agency for my first job when I graduated, and it's just a strange thing to be. We actually now have a lot of Latinos here. We didn't have there were a couple of Latino neighborhoods when I first moved here, but now I think like an eighth of the population of Massachusetts is Latino. So um, we still have lousy Mexican restaurants.
I was just going to
And,
ask
and
that. I
uh,
was going to say,
and actually, one of the biggest things we do in here in P-Town is every year, right before Christmas, we have a big tamale fest, and virtually every Latino person on the Cape comes up for it. Right? It's like we have we make dozens and dozens and dozens, and they all and we end up with like maybe one dozen to freeze at the end of the night. Right? But uh, everybody comes for that because that's what you do before Christmas, right?
right, right,
And
right.
but it is funny, that I'm here, right? And, the brownest person in the room half the
Right.
time.
Well, I was born and reared in San Diego,
Ah,
so and that's where I am right now. I'm helping my sister take care of our elderly mother, but um, it's just interesting because I moved up to San Francisco and lived in San
ah.
Francisco for a number of years. That's where I met my husband. Sorry, everybody, we're taking this tangent about our lives. But what I found was fascinating was that when I got up to San Francisco, the only place you could get Mexican food was in the Mission. If you went
Right.
outside the Mission anywhere, at least when I arrived, it was like unbelievably like bad. It was like, are you kidding? We're in California. What the hell?
Yeah, I used to be, people used to always say, well, San Francisco has the best restaurant. I go, well, not if you're Mexican, right? I mean, San Jose always had huge numbers of Mexican population. My family, my father's like was a migrant farm worker, right? And then when they settled, it wasn't Silicon Valley in those days. It was canneries and a lot of
Hmm, hmm,
farms. So
hmm.
both my parents were farm workers, and that's why they were in San Jose. Um, of course, it switched around, and over years there were no more farms, so they found other jobs eventually. But so San Jose always had a big Mexican population, and about a third of my high school was Mexican, and about a third was Japanese American. But kids whose parents had been in camps, and then a third were white. So it was kind of a weird mix. I
And
guess it's
all the
very
white people
normal.
walking
It's
around going, "What the fuck are we?"
and then I got and then like I was the only Latino person in my class, my graduate class at Harvard, the Kennedy School. And then I think I was the first and maybe one of only two or three who've gotten doctorates from the School of Public Health at Boston University. I can never fill out an anonymous survey because, there's just me and two women, right? They can figure out who said what on the form. So it's weird being the first, but you think after all these years there'd be other folks, but there hasn't yet.
Yeah, excellent. So, how did Agnes give you the spur to write Provincetown Stories? What was the impetus? What made you go, you know what? I'm going to give this fiction thing a go.
Well, I don't know if you've ever been to Provincetown. It's a crazy place when everybody's a
It
little
has
bit
a
off.
reputation.
Yeah. And not everything is creative. I mean, after the thousandth time in a week, you see some guy in a Speedo and high heels walking down the street. That's not really creative anymore. But something about that when when it's 50 degrees and you see a guy in red cha-cha heels and a
I'm
speedo
glad you
walking
said
down the
cha-cha.
street. Sorry, I had to throw that in.
No, I know
Uh,
what that means.
yeah, and it's like you could write anything you want, right? You could
Right,
really
right.
it gives that's why it's such an artist colony, even though like a lot of the other, I guess Carmel used to be an artist colony, Key West isn't what it used to be, but Provincetown is still nutty. So, you know, I can do whatever
It's
I
ripe for the
want.
picking.
Right, right. And so like you start off with this character, thinking about a character who's like this, whatever, and then you realize, no, they could do this, they could do that. You could go wild, right?
Right.
And that's what people do here. So that's really the inspiration. Like don't hold back. Yeah, and how many I'm writing other stories about Provincetown beyond the ones that are here, but I had this chance, I had this opportunity to write these things, to put these things down, and so really I better not mess it up. I guess it's
So
a little wild.
it seems like you have this as short vignettes or short stories throughout the
Hmm.
book. So it's not a whole ensemble narrative in that it's not like one story that's weaving through. So tell us a little bit about how you decided to do it in this format, and what were some of the challenges that you ran into while writing it?
Um, I decided I really wanted to showcase the people, and I wanted as many people as possible. So rather than doing a novel where you'd have to have one person and or two or three or whatever, small number, and carry them through, the whole narrative, I wanted as many people as possible. So some of the short stories are actually sort of conventional, where you have a person or persons and you follow them for a number of pages and it ends. But some of the stories are really nothing more than vignette after vignette of people. And that to me, is
Oh, it
really
can
what
be
I,
quite compelling. Yeah.
yeah, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted, these people. Now, the problem, of course, is that you can't, the problem is that getting so that the readers believe it has to be believable. And some of the things really aren't believable. So you have to kind of be careful, right? That you have to still be grounded in reality, even though there's a few people here who aren't. The one thing I did do, and I'm very proud of it, and several of the characters reoccur over the course of the novel, but my favorite character, and what has turned out to be the favorite character of people I've talked to, is a person named Luna, who um, turns out she's Cuban. She was assigned male at birth, but she prefers female pronouns,
Hmm.
and she's from Cuba, and she first moved to Provincetown in 1890, and she's still around. She's immortal. She doesn't know why. Um, Her biggest wish is not just that she's immortal, but her feet didn't hurt so much because she has bad arches and she likes to walk around in high heels. So, but that's her biggest complaint in life. Um, but she's a recurring character, and she also is responsible for keeping Provincetown in sync in the and running. So like if it wasn't for her, the tides would be out of sync with the rest of the world, for example. And she just
Ah,
sort of, she's the one, and she's also the sage because she's so old. She's wise, right? So when somebody has a love problem or whatever,
she's
or
seen it
somebody
all.
falls in love, right? They go, the Luna, is this person really the person I should be with and stuff. So she's in like four or five of the stories. And she turns out to be the character that people really love the most. And I really loved her. But so I sort of posit that all of Provincetown keeps going because of um 150-year-old genderqueer Cubana. Why not,
Excellent.
right?
I love that. I love that. So,
Right.
were any stories harder to write in these, or are they all of a certain style? I mean, because you can
Yeah.
have some dark instances, within that, especially given the history of what's happened to our community throughout the years. So, were any of them more difficult to write and what did that surprise you when you started with that particular story?
Um, yeah, I think the hard so most of the stories are fun
Yeah.
because Province of Public, but there are serious stories. And the most serious and the most difficult to write was the one about a man who had met his lover at a bar in Provincetown in I think around 1990, I think was my idea. And then the lover dies of AIDS, and he hasn't been able to come back here for 20 years because of that
Mm.
hurt. And it's actually, I hope I don't tear up here, and I apologize if I do. It's actually based on the fact that back in the day, we met a wonderful couple, very nice. One was a doctor, one was a school teacher. And we started, there was a whole group of us, we were all young. You only get a week, 2 weeks of vacation. We could only be here 1 week a year. We would all come back and spend, the same time next year kind of thing. There was like
Right.
maybe five couples, and we all did that. And we all went to this one bar because that's where we met. And then the one guy died of AIDS. And, frankly, I couldn't go back to that bar for 20 years or maybe longer, 30 years. I don't know how long it was.
Wow.
Um, because I was so upset about that.
Well, yeah,
And so,
an event that rips something from your reality. Yeah.
and I think for any gay man, trans person of a certain age, I think there's a lot of us lost so many people, and there's a
Hmm.
lot of places and a lot of things. So I wanted to capture that. And that
Hmm.
was, and I just thought, okay, I'm going to be really cold and clinical because, I could, get my doctorate's in epidemiology. I could write about something that kills 1 million people a year, right? And
Right.
they're not people, they're numbers, right?
Right.
Not 1 million people, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can write about something that's cold, the relative risk of mortality is blah blah blah. And it's not, you wiped away all the tears off of it, right? But to write this one, it was just very difficult. But I wanted it, and so I barreled through with it. Um, the other part is that not all the stories end happily. Like, there's a story about these two 20 somethings, right, who have a wonderful week together. That at the end of it, one falls in love with the other because he's having such a good time, and the other would say, I gotta go. I have a boyfriend back in Philadelphia, and see you later, right? And the poor guy is left heartbroken, right? And I like the characters, even the bad people I like. So you wanted them to succeed, right? You wanted them to be good, but life isn't like that. So
Exactly.
um, I get disappointed with some of the you know, there's a woman who falls in love with this other woman who is just emotionally unavailable, and like I felt so bad for both of them, like that the one is incapable of love, and the other one decides she's going to be in love with somebody incapable of love. I like my characters, even the bad ones.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, you have to have that wide spectrum, especially as an author, because if it's not interesting to you, it's going to translate on the page. It has to
Right.
be of interest to its creator. And I think that that's probably something that a lot of readers don't quite understand is that when we're crafting, we need to have a passion for what it is that we're writing. So are there any other favorite stories that you want to highlight here before we move on?
My favorite story is about a somebody decides they need to put up a plaque to honor Judy Garland performing in Provincetown, and smart readers will know the what's the little trick inside the story anyway. It's to honor her performing in Provincetown in 1971. And everybody starts trying to outdo each other, right? Like, I was there with her. When she was performing, I walked into her car. I did this and I did that, right? And even people who weren't even born yet were saying that, right? Well, as every gay man knows, she died in 1969.
Yeah,
So all of that is
literally on the
fake,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah, right.
exactly.
So,
Uh-huh.
so again, that's a really, if you're smart, you really know that in the story from the beginning. It says right off the bat, she was there July, I don't remember, 21st, 1971. And they have newspaper articles and commemorative T-shirts and everything else. But she could never have done it, right?
Yeah.
So that's really my favorite story because that is really what people here do, right? They get so into something, right? Like, I was there, I knew that, blah 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 blah. Well,
Yeah. I like that. I definitely like that. Yeah, because when you're saying 97 round, I'm like,
yeah, yeah. and
any
and
game
they
out worth his salt would know that.
and somebody even points it out toward the end of the story that she couldn't have been there, but they go ahead. The town has to vote to approve putting the plaque in a public park, it was like 1,029 to 2 was the vote in favor because hey,
Yeah, well, they've already committed. They've got
right,
shirts.
right. Well, they raised the money for it. There were
Right,
fundraisers.
exactly.
That's
Got
what
to recoup.
they had 500 Judy Garland people dressed up as 500 Judy Garlands, right?
Uh-huh.
In the carnival parade and marched to raise money for the whole thing. Anyway, it was fun. A lot of the stories are fun.
Excellent. Love that. Is there anything about the book that you want people to know that I failed to ask about?
Just that it has really everybody and everything. There are straight people in it. There are gay people, lesbian people, trans people, genderqueer people, black, white, Latino, everything. That it isn't, well, gay people, gay men in particular are very prominent in the book. There really is everybody because Provincetown has everybody in it. I think that's the important thing to notice.
Right. It's the full spectrum of humanity.
Yes.
Excellent. Excellent. I love that. So, are you ready for our get to know you questions?
Sure.
Okay. Before we get to that, just want to let everybody know if you like what we're doing here, please like, subscribe, comment, do all the things the algorithm monster demands of us. And that helps us get these interviews out there so people can actually, when they're looking for their next LGBTQ media purchase, they can come here and know that they can find something of their liking. So definitely tell everybody you know, share these videos with your friends, especially if they're in the queer community and they love to consume queer media. So definitely do that. One way you can help us support us is by going to patreon.com/rope podcast. Up there we have reactions that I'm doing with Albert Nothlet, who is a Mexican author that lives down in Mexico, just outside of Mexico City. And he's never been exposed to a lot of these things. So it's really wonderful seeing his first time reactions. And also a gay Mexican from the other side of the border who has a very different life experience than those of us who live on this side of the border. So it's really fascinating to see there are things that I responded to one way and then it's literally me watching him watch this. That's literally what it is. And so there are sometimes when he'll say something and I'll just go, really, that's what you got out of that? And so it's really kind of fascinating, if especially if you've seen some of the things that I'm showing him. So you can go up there, you can buy the individual full reactions unedited beginning to end, and they're only $5 for movies or $3 for TV episodes, and we do several series. So definitely check that out, if you're so inclined, and helps us keep the lights on. Or you can do a one-time donation at buymeacoffee.com/rope podcast. Or even cheaper, you can go to our YouTube memberships, which is live now, and it has only 99 cents a month, less than a buck, and you can help us keep the lights on. We have the full reactions up there as well, but they're in watch along format. So I give you a minute of what we're watching in the beginning, middle, and end. And then, you can make sure your copy is synced up with us and you get all our commentary while we're watching it with you. So that's another way to do it. So with all of that out of the way, let's get into the weeds with Russ. What what book, film, or piece of art has had the biggest influence on your writing style?
Um, well, of course, I can never answer a question just with one. So I would say there, for my style, there were two. One was The Great Gatsby, Fitzgerald's
Mm.
book, and the other was Tales of the City,
Oh yes,
because
yes,
that really, in a series of very short things, I mean, it was in the newspaper at first, right?
right.
It captured San Francisco in the 70s.
Yeah.
And to this day, if you want to know what life was like, you could read that book and whatever. So that was my inspiration. I want to write something that will be to Provincetown what Tales of the City was to San Francisco,
Mm-hmm.
and Gatsby, of course, because the writing is so beautiful,
Mm.
um, and the themes are so big, even in a story that's kind of a conventional love story. Um, so I wanted to also do that. I mean, I think wanted my stories to work on more than one level. Sometimes they're just, you can if you read a good, if you're not in the mood to think, you can read a story, go, oh, that's nice. But then you go, well, wait a second, wow, this is really talking about something else is on another level that's there. So that's what I wanted.
So, well, who was this is a side question here. Who was the first queer artist or queer writer that you discovered, and how did it affect you?
Well, I think back as a kid, I read all the classics of the 1970s. So Larry Kramer's Faggots, Dancing from the Dance, um,
So
oh,
the
what
Violet
was it?
Quill Gang.
Yeah, all of them, right? That was really the first whatevers, right? And then I went to Kiss of the Spider Woman,
Mm-hmm.
and then I discovered a whole bunch of detective stories. There was the guy, there was a, God, I can't remember the names of them now. But there was a whole series of queer detective stories, right? Some lesbian, whatever, some male, all whatever, and I read them all, right? Back again
Yeah.
in the 80s. Allison Publications did a lot of them. Um, there was something Bramstead was the name of the detective in some of them. Valentine was the name of another
Oh
one.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Uh-huh.
And so I read them all. I
Love
really,
that.
you know,
For
I've
for me
always,
it was for me it was John Recchi and who was one of my all-time favorites. And I just love the way he writes
Oh
sex.
yeah, oh yeah.
He has such a beautiful poetry to his sexual scenes
I read
so I always
City
aspire
of
to,
Night and
yeah,
the
and
Sexual
numbers.
Outlaw
Yeah.
numbers.
Yeah. I just love the way he writes the sex in his books. It's
Mm.
just very, very, very visual and front, like he didn't hold anything back. So for my little 16-year-old gay boy self, that was my lusty book. And then I had Gordon Merrick for my heart. And I'd
Ah.
read the Gordon Merrick. And so I had both those books sitting in my backpack in high school. If anybody ever stole my backpack, they were in for one hell of a ride. Uh, all right. Well, going
Oh
on.
no,
What?
I spent all my time at the library. I would
Oh yeah.
I mean God the number of books I read. I mean the librarians I guess there was no computers in those days, so but if somebody they knew what I was reading, right? Because they go this little
Uh-huh.
kid, right, would have all these gay books and lesbian books. For some reason I liked reading uh, I start off with Radcliffe Hall and Well of Loneliness, and for some reason I had a big thing for lesbian fiction, Ruby Fruit Jungle.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I don't know why.
It's all good. It's all
Yeah,
good.
it was all great. It
It's
was
all good.
great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. All right. Well, if what fictional historical character would you invite to a march with you at a pride parade?
it would have to be Oscar Wilde because he was
Mm,
so catty.
mm.
I actually saw last year a production in London of The Importance of Being Earnest, and it was so good. And it was, I mean, just absolutely, I mean, wow. I mean, what a man. What a great person.
Yeah. And I just really, really fantasize about what he would think if he saw pride parades now. Given what happened to him, I just think he would be moved to
Mhm.
see it so out in public and unashamed. And, I just think our historical forefathers would be really pleased, at least, that it's no longer the huge dark cloud over your life. Yes, there are things we still have to be wary of, but, I just think that someone like Oscar would have really been moved by seeing how many of us there are.
And one wonders if he had been set free to really write to really whatever.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
more,
What
he
did we
died.
miss? Yeah, yeah. What
Yeah,
was taken from us? Yeah,
right, right.
exactly. Excellent. I love that. Okay, if you or a protagonist of yours, let's say Luna, had to survive a gay bar karaoke night, what song would you or they belt out?
Well, I thought about this one a lot. Um, I've only done karaoke once in my life. It was at a gay bar in Oslo, Norway, called the London Pub. They actually had a bombing there, I think, a few years ago. Long after I was. So you're in a gay bar. Most of the guys were doing Madonna songs for whatever reason. They were all into Madonna, but I only know one Norwegian song, which is "Take on Me." So,
And that
um,
was it, huh?
yeah, yeah. So that's what I did. And, I gotta tell you, I cannot hit those high notes to save my life. So, but they were all, because the Europeans are very polite. Or at least
Well,
they
you should
were
have
then.
wrote a note in Norwegian, in Swedish, and just said, imagine high note here, and anytime you had to hit it, just open your mouth and hold the sign.
Yeah. But I can tell people I did "Take on Me" in Oslo. That might be the high point of my professional music. Um, anyway, so there I am in Oslo doing "Take on Me," and perhaps the worst thing for U.S. European relations until
You were
somebody.
immediately deported.
Yeah, and the worst thing until somebody decided they wanted to take Greenland and Iceland away from Europe, right?
Right.
But I have to be for a person who otherwise just drives me insane with anger. I have to at least thank him for that. That maybe they'll forget what I did in
Well, yeah.
my music. There's a lot worse
Suddenly
things
it's
that can
not so
happen.
bad.
Yeah, right, right. But it was fun. At the end of it, we bought a round of beers, which in Oslo means even back in the 10 years ago was about $100 for 5 beers because some things are very cheap, but alcohol for whatever reason is not.
Yeah, well, they're Vikings.
Right, right,
That's water.
right.
All right. Well, what's a place, real or imagined, that feels like home to you and why?
I've been very fortunate. I'm the luckiest guy in the world, I have to say. Between my life and where I am today. So, um, I have to say I love Provincetown. I had a bout of prostate cancer a few years ago, and I had a winter of radiation and all sorts of drugs and everything. And we didn't have a house here yet. And that that spring when we rented for the season, we were renting for the season. So that whatever May when I came back to P Town and drove over a hill and saw the town and the harbor and all the stupid little monument they have. Like, why would you have an Italian um, tower to commemorate people from England coming to the United States? But we do. Who knows? The aesthetics of 1910 were a little bit different than they are today.
Yeah, right.
But anyway, coming over after that horrible winter, and seeing Provincetown, I was like ready to kiss the ground when we got here, and I think I will. This will always be a wonderful place for me. So that's really why I wrote my love letter to Provincetown, which is this book of short stories.
Love that. Love that. Yeah. For me, it's Marin County up in Northern
Mm.
California, just north of San Francisco. That's where I live, and that's where I met my husband and stuff. So definitely has a home feel to me.
The Santa Cruz Mountains in California, which are, when I grew up, was not what I would call the most aesthetically pleasing place on the planet, Silicon Valley. But from my bedroom window, I could see a 3,000, 4,000 foot mountain range covered with redwoods.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was just, I was the luckiest thing guy in the world. Right? I could every morning I'd see that, right?
Yeah.
Then if I with my parents and you get out of school, but
Right.
anyway, but at least when I woke up in the morning, I saw that beautiful view.
Yeah. So I totally get it. I totally get it. All right. What's the strangest or most unexpected place you've ever found inspiration for a work of yours?
I think actually it was in some of the bars I've been into, right? I mean, all sorts of things are going on, right? Which probably, assuming this is a G-rated podcast, I can't really
No, no,
get
you
into
can.
detail.
We're queer, honey.
Well, I mean, there I am in a situation where most of the people are unclad. I won't go any more than that at a certain bar. And there I am wanting to pull out my phone and type in notes so I can remember to put something into a story. Uh, which is probably why I have a reputation here in town of being this guy. Be careful what you say around here because it's going to end up in a story. Or actually, that's not what people do. What people do is like, okay, we got to come up with something wild because we want to be in this next story.
Right, right. It's either or.
Everybody wants to be like. I have had no one complain that they were in the book. I've had complaints that when people think they worked in the book, including from one person who really was an inspiration for a character. Like, well, you are really here. You just don't recognize yourself.
Yeah.
But yeah. So that was and people have started now coming up to me and telling me things. So I was at Tea Dance last week, and somebody had to come up and tell me about a story idea, right? Like what I really wanted to do was just have a drink and look at the water, right? Look at the guys, right? And and there he is saying, well, if we have a character, I think it was, no, this is not going to work. But anyway,
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
it's becoming a little
You
strange
just
now.
have to let them run that mouth.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Love that for you.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's really good. You ought to write that down. Yeah,
Yeah.
remember, there's the
You
old
ought to write that down.
there was the kids in the hall. Remember that show
Oh
back in
yeah.
the yeah.
Oh yeah.
There was Buddy.
Yeah.
He goes the long his long story of anyway, and he goes, well, I guess to sum it up as was it as Molière said to the Guy de Maupassant as they were sitting at a smart cafe in Vienna. That's very interesting. You ought to write that down.
I love that. Okay, well, which themes or motifs do you find yourself returning to again and again in your work?
Um, frustrated love. There's
Yeah.
something about that,
Yep.
you know.
Well, it's a big part of our lives.
Right. I think that's one. Just because, on one hand, I was lucky. I mean, really, I was in my 20s. I turned around. There was this incredibly handsome man who turned out to be a wonderful person and spent my life with him. On the other hand, I had my shit. My first time in Provincetown was not with the guy who turned out to be my husband. It was this other guy, and he was a lunatic. I just don't know, harmless, but
Yeah.
he believed that aliens were coming and doing things with his life, and that he wouldn't eat anything with pepper because he thought pepper would poison your system. I mean, he was just crazy, but he was really good looking. Anyway, so
So you,
I had
yeah,
I've had a lot of so you do what you do,
that's
right?
right. Certain things get a pass.
Yeah, for a while. Then you go like, no, this is not a
All
the
right. Well, what's a piece of LGBTQ plus culture, music, film, art, or history that never fails to inspire you?
the music. Whether it be, thump 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 of, Euro beats, whatever, or a classic,
Disco,
Donna
classic
Summer.
disco. Yeah, classic disco. Come
Um,
on, come on.
right. Or you're even Katie Lang, right? Again,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah, music. I think that music, and that's also part of my, I think, being Latino because I still listen to Spanish music all the time. Celia Cruz is
Mm-hmm.
my idol. I actually wanted to be a salsa singer when I was a kid, and then I was told I can't sing and I can't dance and have no sense of rhythm.
Well,
So
that could be a Broadway show in and of itself. The kid who keeps trying.
right,
That's the play you need to write.
right.
Yeah, maybe make him the luckiest boy in the world who has no ability to do the
To do
things he
any,
wants to
yeah.
do.
Oh yeah, that's a great story. That's a great character to develop. So anyway, so I think music is so much a part of my life, and I think it is part of everybody. And it's um somebody, we were at a bar last night having a drink, and somebody was singing some old standard, right? And it just flows, right? And I
Hmm.
think it just powers life. And I think that's for so many other people, whether they realize it or not, that music is sort of, I think we're, animals at heart, right? We're still, whatever. And I think animals hit something in your lower brain or something. I'm beginning to sound like the old boyfriend now, with the pepper. But I think music does sort of stimulate you in some way. So,
Right, right. No, I love that. I love that answer because there's definitely we have a pantheon of queer artists that were some of them were quite big in the industry, and then a lot of it didn't get revealed until after they left us. So
mm,
it's really kind of, and then you have even our straight allies like Prince, who was very queer coded, but knew how to play the whole thing, and he had just a great way that he appealed to the queer community as well, and he
right.
saw the queer community, but he definitely was a straight man, but it just worked beautifully during that period of time where that queer coding actually had its time in the sun, and we
Hmm,
could
hmm,
all enjoy it,
hmm.
So, yeah, definitely there with you. Well, you made it through our list. Bravo.
Ah, thank you, thank you. I worry about failure, all the time.
I really think you need to write that
Right.
story about the luckiest boy who has
Uh,
no talent. There's something there, I'm telling you. And he keeps lucking up into other stuff.
but I do write one of my stories is about it's I love. It's called The Scribe, and it's actually was written because somebody this dear friend of mine who passed away wanted a story about Tennessee Williams in Provincetown because he hung out here, and so it's about a guy who thought he wanted to be a writer, right? But he has no talent whatsoever, and then he overdoses on marijuana gummies. Thought they were just regular chocolates, I guess, and just took a handful. And anyway, so he hallucinates that he's having an affair with Tennessee Williams, who keeps telling him what a lousy writer he is. So now he spends his time in front of town hall in Provincetown writing love poems for people who are lovelorn or want to break up with somebody.
Right, right. I love all of that. And here's a question for you: if people want to follow you to find out what you're doing next, Where's the best place for them to follow you? And are you doing any local events like readings or what for?
Yeah, the best way is russlopez.com, RUSSLOPEZ.com. It has virtually everything links to almost everything that I've ever done. No high school performances, but adult things. Um, and I really was fortunate. I kind of did a national tour. I was in Los Angeles and Palm Springs and New Orleans and where all those, Baltimore and New York and everything else. And now that the season is beginning, we're having a bunch of things here in Boston and Provincetown. I'm doing readings at both bookstores. East End Books, I believe on June 28th, and then Provincetown Bookshop on the 2nd of August. I'm doing the Truro Library. I'm going to be in the Provincetown Book Festival, and we're going to do a couple pop-ups. We're just going to do
Excellent.
like if the weather's going to be good, we're going to go on the patio at Joe Coffee or perhaps at the Boat Slip and just do a little reading right in the places where some of these things happened. Though of course I changed the names, but
Well, yeah,
there
yeah.
there is no Joe's Coffee. There's a Jimbo's Coffee though with a deck. If you know Provincetown
Oh,
patio.
I love that. It's, I think one of the things that people, especially because Pride is coming up, Pride season's coming up, and so this book will be available by the time this airs. This book will be available, so definitely check it out. Definitely pick it up. It's going to be a wonderful Pride read, so we definitely highly recommend that you check out Russ's book. So definitely do that, and try to buy it from a publisher or a bookstore that's not Amazon. Okay, let's not feed the Bezos monster. Support your
That's what I
local
tell
book.
people. It's like,
Yeah,
it's available wherever books are sold. But really, why not go to your local bookstore?
exactly. Yeah, let's give them some love because they truly need it. They struggle against the behemoth that is Amazon. So definitely go to your local bookstore, request it. If they don't have it in stock, ask them why the hell not. So
Go
do what you can to get this thing out there. All right. So, is any final words of wisdom for our audience before we wrap this baby up?
Just that there are things all around you that are interesting and happening, and you gotta like pay attention to them. I think that's actually the most important thing. I mean, that was the
Mhm.
lesson I learned in writing this book, that there's just so much out there, right? And that you can be flooded with images and things and events and enjoy them because that's what life is about.
Excellent. Love that. Are there any plans to do a full length novel at some point?
Yeah, I started to work on one. It's funny because there was a review in the Gay and Lesbian review of the book, and it said that really it should be a novel, and I went like, oh yeah, I could write a novel, right? And so I've started. It will be a while. I'm taking some of the characters, putting some new characters in, and
So
it's
characters
good.
from this book will appear in
Yeah,
the other. Love
yeah,
that. Love
yeah,
that. Love that.
and it's going to be
So we're gonna
it's
get Ms. Luna again.
yes, definitely. And there's a demon twink who's going to
Of
reappear.
course,
Re-
as they're want to show up.
right, whether you want them there or not, they're there,
Exactly.
right? So yeah, it's going to be there will be a novel. I haven't come up with a title for it yet. But I'm just in the first. Yeah, I think I've written like
The
maybe
development part. Yeah.
yeah. So
Love that.
it'll be a while.
Excellent. Well, we'd like to extend a huge thank you to Russ Lopez for being on our show. Russ, thank you so much.
And thank you for letting me come on.
Okay, we at Written on the Edge are proud to present you with new media by queer content creators. If you enjoy learning about new artists or hearing our thoughts on entertainment media, please like and subscribe so you can get the alerts for all the new episodes. This show is produced by Rogue Ravens Media. For disclaimers, links to social media, our listen stations, or to sign up as a guest, visit www.ropepodcast.com. Until then, tune in next week for your queer media fix. Bye, kids.
Bye.
Oh, what's that?
Closing time. The bums rush in melody, dear.